What if I told you that 97% of all currencies that have ever existed are now worthless? Not struggling, not devalued, completely extinct. The US dollar in your pocket right now has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1913. And most people don't realize we're watching the same catastrophic pattern unfold in real time. In the next 6 minutes, you're going to discover how a thriving empire saw its currency collapse from the world's most trusted money to literal garbage in just 40 years, and why the warning signs flashing today are almost identical. You'll learn the 3 specific wealth protection strategies that saved the smart money during history's greatest currency collapse, and how you can implement them this week. Because here's the shocking truth: your government won't warn you when your money is dying. They never do. By the time the masses realize what's happening, their savings have already evaporated. But you're about to learn how to see it coming and what to do about it. Welcome to Rome, 35 AD. The empire stands at its territorial peak, stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia, commanding 65 million subjects, a quarter of the world's population. The silver denarius has reigned as the Mediterranean world's reserve currency for over 4 centuries, trusted from the markets of Alexandria to the taverns of Londinium. Roman soldiers expect their pay in denarii. Merchants measure wealth by them. Tax collectors demand them. But Emperor Maximinus Thrax faces an impossible problem. Barbarian invasions rage along the Rhine and Danube frontiers, requiring massive military spending, yet the silver mines of Spain and Dacia are exhausted. The treasury is empty, so Maximinus makes a decision that will echo through history. He orders the imperial mint to dilute the currency. When Augustus ruled in 10 AD, the denarius contained 95% pure silver, nearly 4 grams of precious metal you could bite and verify. Citizens could see the quality, feel the weight. But by 235 AD, that percentage has already slipped to 50%. What Maximinus begins becomes a cascade of debasement across the next 40 emperors. Each ruler faces the same crisis: mounting military costs, empty treasuries, and a simple solution: just add more cheap metal to the coins. By 265 AD, under Emperor Gallienus, the denarius contains just 5% silver, coated with a thin silver wash that rubs off in your hand, revealing the cheap bronze core beneath. The coins physically crumble. Merchants begin weighing every coin, biting them, rejecting suspicious pieces. Emperor Aurelian tries stamping vexgeeks on coins, meaning 21 parts copper to 1 part silver, thinking transparency will restore trust. It doesn't. By 301 AD, prices have exploded 200,000% from their first century levels. A pound of gold that once bought 72 pounds of wheat now barely buys a loaf of bread. Emperor Diocletian, desperate to stop the madness, issues the edict on maximum prices, fixing prices on over 1,000 goods by imperial decree and threatening death for violations. The law carves into stone the wages of soldiers, teachers, and scribes, the price of silk, salt, and slaves. The result? Goods vanish from markets. Farmers refuse to sell at enforced prices. Black markets flourish, and the currency keeps dying. The collapse accelerates with terrifying speed. Between 260 and 280 AD, just 20 years, the Roman economy experiences what we'd now call hyperinflation. A Roman soldier named Marcus, stationed on the German frontier, receives his monthly pay of 225 denarii in 260 AD. 20 years later, his son, also a legionary, receives 38,000 denarii for the same work, yet can buy less with that mountain of coins than his father bought with a handful. The government prince literally strikes money so fast that coin quality becomes absurd. The silver wash is so thin it disappears after a single transaction. Citizens need wheelbarrows of coins for basic purchases. A surviving papyrus from Egypt records that a pound of pork cost 4 drachmas in 250 AD. By 300 AD, the same pound cost 7,200 drachmas. Ordinary Romans watched their life savings evaporate. That retired centurion who saved 10,000 denarii over 20 years of service, enough to buy a small farm in 250 AD, wakes up in 280 AD, unable to buy a month's grain with the same coins. Panic sets in. Citizens hoard anything real: olive oil, grain, tools, livestock. The smart money, wealthy senators and merchants, had already converted to tangible assets. They buy farmland, shipping vessels, apartment buildings in Rome. They trade their degraded coins for gold jewelry, which they melt down and hide. Diocletian's price controls in 301 AD create the final chaos. Bakers who can't profit at government-mandated bread prices simply close their ovens. The penalty for charging more? Execution. So instead, bread vanishes. Meat disappears from markets. Urban Romans face a choice: pay black market prices at 5 to 10 times the legal rate or starve. The empire fragments as provinces refuse to accept the worthless central currency and create their own money. Trade routes collapse, cities shrink. The sophisticated monetary economy that took 4 centuries to build disintegrates in 40 years. By 312 AD, Emperor Constantine abandons the denarius entirely, introducing the gold solidus, starting the cycle again with a new currency backed by real metal. If this pattern sounds familiar, it should terrify you. Since 2020, the United States has increased its money supply by over 40%, printing more dollars in 2 years than existed in the first 200 years of the Republic. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet exploded from $4 trillion in 2019 to $9 trillion by 2022, then started cutting rates again in 2024, despite persistent inflation. Sound familiar? It's the same playbook. Economic crisis, empty treasury, wars to fund, Ukraine, Middle East tensions, and the printing press is the easiest solution. In 2008, the Fed said quantitative easing was temporary. In 2020, they said pandemic spending was a one-time emergency. Now it's permanent policy with a new name. The echoes are everywhere. Rome debased to pay soldiers on distant frontiers. We print to fund military operations across 750 bases worldwide. Rome fixed prices with imperial edicts. We see price controls proposed for rent, drugs, and food. Rome's citizens watched their savings evaporate while elites converted to real assets. Today, the top 1% own the stock market, real estate, and businesses, while the middle class holds depreciating cash in savings accounts, earning 0.5%, while inflation runs at 3 to 7%. Between 2020 and 2024, the average American lost 23% of their purchasing power, the fastest decline since the 1970s. Your $100,000 saved in 2020 buys what $77,000 bought then. And just like Rome, the government tells you inflation is transitory, that everything is fine, that your eyes deceive you when milk costs $5 and eggs cost $7. History shows that no fiat currency has ever survived long term. The British pound, the world's reserve currency before the dollar, has lost 99.5% of its value since 1900. The pattern isn't a possibility, it's probability. The only question is timing and whether you'll be prepared. So what do you do when you understand that history is rhyming? 3 specific moves starting today. First, convert depreciating currency into appreciating scarcity. Allocate 10–20% of your liquid savings into hard assets that governments can't print. Physical gold, Bitcoin, income-producing real estate, or shares in businesses with real assets and pricing power. The Roman elites who survived owned farmland and ships, not coins. Today's equivalent is tangible assets with intrinsic value. Second, eliminate debt denominated in dying currency, but strategically. High-interest consumer debt destroys wealth in any environment. Eliminate it aggressively, but productive debt on hard assets can actually work in your favor during inflation. You borrow today's dollars and repay with tomorrow's cheaper ones while owning something real. The Romans who owed money on farmland in 260 AD and repaid in 280 AD, effectively paid pennies on the dollar. Third, develop skills and income streams that maintain value across monetary regimes. The baker survived Rome's collapse because people always need bread. Build recession-proof skills, multiple income sources, and relationships that transcend currency. Remote work ability, trade skills, professional expertise. These retain value whether we're using dollars, digital currency, or trading chickens. Your knowledge and capabilities can't be inflated away. Start this week. Calculate your real inflation rate using your actual spending. If you're not earning returns above that rate, you're getting poorer. Move 10% into hard assets immediately. The Romans who acted early preserved generational wealth. Those who waited until the crisis was obvious lost everything. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. Subscribe now, because next week we're revealing the playbook that protected the Rothschild, fortune through 5 currency collapses, and the one asset class they're accumulating right now that almost no one is talking about. See you then.